This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
Yeah, I forgot to hit the transition button, but let's pick up the mics and get on with this thing. Professional.
All right. So I've been here a while now, and I don't think I've really been around the entire House Misdirected. I almost said House Mouse Directed. House Misdirected.
Misdirected Mark.
That's the wrong IP, Jer. We'll get in trouble.
This is true.
You're going to get a C&D sent our friggin' address.
Yes, no C&Ds on this
true.
show. Anyway, you have not seen most of the House Misdirected. Basically, with this whole pandemic thing, and then moving to Zoom and all that, we really didn't have a chance to give you like the full tour of the house. Hey, Bob, did you find it yet?
Not yet. I found the back room. Isn't that the place where...
Yes and no. No, nothing happens there. And yes, the name makes you think that things happen there.
Okay.
I don't know. I think it's just nice to be walking around.
Oh, I found it. Right this way.
Oh, this is nice. High back chairs, wood paneling, a fireplace. Very cozy.
Yeah, it's a bit dusty, but I think the old salon is just what we need tonight.
Yeah, I agree. We've been in a workshop for a while. It's nice to take a break.
Exactly. So Jerry, grab a seat. Bob, light up the fire. I'm going to go to the bar and pour a few drinks.
Yeah.
And while I do that, I'm going to say welcome to the first Salon episode of the Misdirected Mark podcast. Tonight, we take a break from our regular format to hang out in the salon, talk about gaming, media, and other things, but most of all, how all of that relates to gaming. And to start, my name is Phil.
My name is Jerry.
And as always, I am Old Man Logan.
Right. Let's start the show with just kind of a check-in, see how we're doing, how people are feeling. Were we off last week? Or was that the week before?
That was the week before.
Jeez.
Last
Dude,
week was confidence.
I am unable to discern week from week anymore. I can track the course of a week based on podcasts and games, but I cannot tell 1 week from the next. So, all right, good. So we were on last week.
Yes, we were on this week.
I guess I'll start. Overall, everyone in my house is healthy. That's good. I'm still home. This is now my 9th week working from home.
Mm-hmm.
I tweaked my back a little. I actually tweaked my back and hurt my bad arm all at the same time. I had not been doing very much, so I was like, I need to start stretching. I need to, do some light yoga, start stretching kind of thing. And I got a little overzealous and pulled, just strained. I didn't even really do any serious damage, but I strained up one muscle in my lower back. And it's just been uncomfortable. It's been uncomfortable for like a week.
I believe that.
It's not terrible. Like I can sit, I can get up, I can walk around. Like it's not like when I've thrown my back out, in the past where it's like I'm like, hanging onto the wall to get to the bathroom kind of thing. Yeah. I'm fine. Like once I stand up for a few seconds, I'm fine. But those first few moments in the morning are always like the first, like sitting up and then standing up are like super uncomfortable. And then like as I kind of loosen up, I'm fine for the day. But I really would like it to go away because I really enjoyed stretching.
Dude, that's every morning for me.
Is that what's in front of me?
That's what's waiting for you around the corner, dude.
It is exactly what's waiting for you around the corner.
Spirits wise, I'm okay. I had like a little bit of a breakdown before the weekend started, like on Friday. Just a little bit of work stress, home stress, kind of thing piled on. And for the most part, though, like I'm still a solid okay. Like never too excited, never too depressed, just kind of a solid okay. So that's me. Jer, how about you? How you doing?
Pretty good for the most part. Last week was kind of a downer because all my games got canceled except for one.
Oof.
So a lot of what I was looking for was kind of get ready for the day, and then the nighttime comes like, oh, we're not doing this. I'm like, crap. But luckily, to be honest, the MMP Slack room, getting on at night and talking to people and still making those connections, spending time with my wife. We watch some movies and I had some time. And just kind of, you get through it. Today was a weird day because it was one of those days that just everything seemed to crawl. It was a productive day. It was one of those things where you look over at the clock thinking it's 4 o'clock and it's 1.
Yeah. That's the worst. You're like, wow, I got a whole lot done today. Fuck.
That and I did a little bit of Lego therapy, and that's about it.
Sweet.
So, Bob?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I have been having some things here and there as the weeks drone on with lethargy and just all kinds of stuff like that. But I when I'm keeping busy, things seem a lot more normal. And if I'm not just trying to find stuff to fill time, like today I was productive. I descaled and replaced the filter in my Keurig machine. I took the garbage and the recycling out of the house.
Nice.
I washed some dishes. So I got some stuff done. I felt productive. And prior to that, I had the little project where I was packing up my sorting my magic cards and all that stuff and pulling out the money. So I've been feeling much better through the course of doing those kind of things and feeling productive. So today was a pretty good day.
All right, cool. So we're going to kick this off. We kicked it off with how we're doing, but we're going to just roll that right into one thing. So, Bob, I'm just going to throw it right back at you. You hinted about it just a few seconds ago. Why don't you tell us a little bit more? What's your one thing for this week?
Yeah, the big magic buyback. Magic : the buyback. I just happened upon an email. I get your typical I can't think of it's advertisement, direct mail stuff from places like Miniature Market, where they say, "Oh, we're having a sale or whatever," blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. Mass market was the term I was looking for. The mass market emails that they send out to everybody. And it said, "Oh, we're doing a buyback program again," and they listed off, minis and magic cards and stuff. And I went, I've been meaning to go through all my magic cards again and look and see if there's anything that's worth anything, and maybe get rid of some of them. At the very least, get them all sorted up nice, and then if I ever want to just get rid of them and hand them off to somebody, they're in some semblance of order. So I looked at the list just for giggles, and I went, holy crap, there's some cards on here that I'm pretty sure I probably have that look like they're worth a few bucks. And I'm like, that's not bad. Maybe I can make, 50, 60, $100 if I'm good, if I'm lucky.
Sure. So
I sorted through them all, went through their list. It took me a while to figure out what sets were which, because the way they marked the sets was weird. But when I finally got that figured out, I was like, okay, what do we got? I put together a list of 906 cards that if they give me maximum for every card, it's over $2,300.
Nice.
Now, I probably spent at least $1,000 on magic cards back in the day when we were buying
them. That's like 100 years ago.
But that was a long time ago. Yeah. So I put the list together, and the vast majority of my cards are in near mint condition because they were either never played or they were played with once or twice. A lot of them I had opened up the booster packs, pulled them out and looked at them, and then stuck them back in the booster packs and put them back in the box. So they're in really nice condition. So I packed all that up, sent them off. They're going to get there on Thursday. Then the Miniature Market people have to sort through them, decide if they're all in near mint or if they want to grade them lower, and then decide what they want to give me. And then they're going to shove it on my PayPal account.
Yeah, there you go.
Woo! That'll be a nice little surprise windfall.
Well, there's your Marvel game that you just bought.
Yeah, that'll help pay for that Marvel game with all the minis. But that was it was also
awesome.
It was kind of nostalgic going through all those cards, remembering when I got some of them, remembering playing, in the early days when we first found the game before it became Magic the Wallet Emptying. when it was just like, holy crap, this is a fun game and it's unique, and Richard Garfield really outdid himself with that.
What is that, like the first week you play it?
Yeah, the first week, and then it all goes down from there.
I'll when we get to the if we remember, if you want to throw this on a note or something, we get to the after show, I'll tell my story about how I first played Magic in '94 and how quickly it became weaponized. Like, it's pretty funny. So cool, Magic buyback. Jared, what about you, man? What have you been working on?
I've been continuing my little mental project. I've been slowly converting characters from Village of Gigantes rule books into the Marvel face rip world, and it's been fun to do. It's something I used to do all the time, just converting characters from one game to another to see how game mechanics work. And as I kind of mentioned last week, I like to see how the zany characters of V&V actually really work better in Marvel, because Marvel had a better generic system that was more streamlined. Characters that look at just putting characters together. In Village of Gigantes, it's a lot of dice rolling, completely random characters. And a lot of times you can tell that the character concept as described in the background and by the artwork doesn't match the actual stats. You've got a gifted scientist who created his own powered armor, and he has an intelligence of 8, where converting to Marvel, it's easy enough to scope that up, give them some skills and so on, and put them back into that same feel. So, I mean, if I ever run Face with Marvel again, well, when I run Face with Marvel, not if, I may do one set in the V&V universe just for the fun of it, because V&V really handles a lot of street level characters fairly well. It's most of their stuff is really what would be considered street level characters, and it'd be a lot of fun and be neat to see. It's also just fun to revisit old nostalgic games from 40 years ago and look at the cool artwork and see how crazy they had characters. And one of the source books at the time, called Opponents Unlimited, was actually made by an author who didn't really like the superhero genre and kind of went out of his way to make ridiculous and useless characters, which ended up being a lot of fun to put together and stand up. So anyway, it's been a fun little mental exercise. I'm about 2/3 of the way through doing what I want to do with it, and then I'll have them all converted. So how about you, Phil? What have you been up to this week?
So I started messing around with it. So it started as like many of my game design process. It started with a joke in Slack room.
Yep.
That I was going to make keyboards and rollerblades, my lasers and feelings tribute to the movie Hackers. I think it's well known that I love the movie Hackers quite a bit. It's a ridiculous romp of a story that has very little to do with actual computers, but I love it nonetheless. And so I just, made that joke that keyboards and rollerblades would be my lasers and feelings hack. And then we started talking more about it on the Slack. And then I was like, well, shit. I'm like, that's enough. That's enough thought behind it. I should just go and make it.
Look what you made me do. Now I have to design a game.
So I think the rest of us, as soon as you mentioned that, I think the rest of us out in Misdirected Mark were like, well, we're going to see that game soon.
Yeah, I got some encouragement. Schmitty's been a big Schmitty, who is possibly a bigger fan of Hackers than I am, which is saying quite a bit. Gave me a lot of encouragement. And so in the Slack room Sunday night, I actually started drafting the first iteration of it. And I got pretty far. I really just need to come up with the way, which I've got some ideas on how to make the adventure generator. And then I think it's a slam dunk. So yes, this is not meant to be tongue in cheek, right? So this is not meant to be a slapstick like Rocker Boys and Vending Machines. It's a light RPG, but it's supposed to be cool hacker kids kind of opposing
the man,
corporations and overbearing government agencies. But it's been a lot of fun. The hacker handles are all song names from the 3 soundtracks, and there are little Easter eggs and stuff like that to the movie, all sprinkled inside of it. So anyway, I'm messing around with it, and when I'm done, I'll kick it out. I'll kick it out in a draft form for people to take a look at. But it's Lasers and Feelings, so it really needs like one playthrough, and then I'll be like one playthrough, and then I'll be like, cool, let's go lay this sucker out.
That one doesn't require hundreds of hours of playtesting. No. But I think to stick with the plan, when we do lay it out, I think I'm going to go find if Megan Dornbrock wouldn't make me some hacker-looking characters based on the hackers' characters, like sure,
motorcycle jackets and weird urban streetwear kind of looking things. But I want Meg to do it. I think that I love Meg's artwork, and our other two Lasers and Feelings hacks have Meg's artwork. I see no reason.
Oh, absolutely.
To break tradition. So anyway, I've been messing around with that. That's been a lot of fun. Cool. So with that out of the way, let's do a couple of announcements, and then we can get cozy in the salon and chat for a bit.
Yay.
So, Jerry, what's our first announcement?
All right, the FM Gamers this month, in the month of May, over on Twitter, that's FMGcast. We're doing a month of writing prompts. Every day is a different writing prompt. What's your favorite encounter that you had during a overnight watch? What's the most interesting that happened when you rolled a 1? What's your favorite science fiction game? I think today's is what's your favorite fantasy role-playing game and why? Just trying to give people something to do every day and tune in for. So if you're on Twitter, jump into at FMGcast and take a look at what writing prompts you've got. You're going to add your own. We'd love to read more ideas.
Boy, I'm conflicted over my favorite fantasy RPG. Like, all time, I have to say Dungeon World. But if you ask me, like, in the here and now, it's a really close tie between DCC and Forbidden Lands. I love both of these games for very different reasons.
I can't lie. My favorite fantasy RPG right now is Forbidden Lands. Ranking that as Forbidden Lands, D&D 5, Dungeon World. But Dungeon World and D&D 5 are like 2A and 2B.
I think it's also what this is the same thing that came up when they asked about sci-fi game. Depends on what you're trying to, or they asked what's your favorite horror game. Depends what you're going for.
Yeah.
I mean, Call of Cthulhu, GURPS Horror, and Stalking the Fantastic are 3 totally different kinds of horror games. Forbidden Lands and traditional D&D are very different fantasy games.
Yeah.
DCC and
DCC is a whole different animal.
DCC and Snarf Quest are both. Don't play Snarf Quest. Do not play Snarf Quest.
Man.
Too bad. I loved Snarf Quest the comic. Now that is an old reference, folks.
Do not go back and reread it.
Oh, is it really bad?
Well, let's see. One of the main characters.
No, you know what? Don't.
Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. Yeah, don't.
Right.
You don't want to.
No, it's fair. It did not age. Okay.
Yeah.
Because consider the artist, and that's all you need to really know.
Damn it.
Okay.
Once more, my childhood media rears its 80s problematic heads.
It was creepy back then.
First, Brian Adams, and now Snarf Quest. What am I going to do?
God. Listen, I'm going to save this. I'm going to save this for the after show. But Brian, I did not have Brian Adams on my bingo
card.
board.
No.
Wow. Brian Adams, full on racist. Yeah. Like not even like a little, like just grab the throttle and just like,
he didn't dance around it, he laid it out there.
Wow. Well, I'm done with that guy.
Yeah,
all right, anyway, let's
talk about it later on.
Let's kick that to the that was a stunner, man. That was okay.
Yep.
Flick.
Bob, what's our other announcement?
So there was a Kickstarter not that long ago that was really successful, closed out after its run, made a bunch of money, and it is for an app called the Portrait Workshop. I've got a link that is going into the chat room right now where you can go and you can do a pre-order. They've after the Kickstarter was successful and everything, they continued on with development. Now they've got a pre-order where you can go in and you can get a hold of I had the link. or the email up, and it's not giving me the information that I wanted, but it's a mobile app for iPhone, iPad, and Android that makes it easy to create great customized character portraits for your gaming campaign. And they've got all kinds of stuff in it. This is a really slick program that they're putting together. And you can do all kinds of different species, skin colors, hair, accoutrement, clothing, everything. Like it's not just like cookie cutter, like here's like the one build, and like it's like super detailed. Go to the link and check it out. They are doing a pre-order where you get early access to the beta and a discounted price, which includes exclusive pre-order content. All of the little bonus kits that they put into it for different the expansions, like the fantasy races and the equipment and all that other stuff. So I think it's worth checking out if you play games and you like to come up with your own character portraits. I go back and forth. Sometimes I use like a Hero Lab or whatever the what was the other one that was really popular for a while? I can't remember it, but
Hero Lab though. Yeah, I used a lot of Hero Lab.
I would go back and forth between doing that or just looking for a picture on the internet that kind of encapsulates what I think the character would look like. But this is a pretty slick thing, and what you're getting it's $25 for the early pre-order, and it's not bad. Not bad at all. I was really impressed with this when the Kickstarter came out, and I put it on my watch list, and then somehow I zoned out on it, and I never backed it, because they had a tier in the pre-order, or in the Kickstarter, where you could pay a really tiny amount. I forget, it was something silly like maybe $50, and you get 5 keys that you could share. You get the keys, you give them to your friends, and then 5 people could all have access to the app as if they bought it. And it was dirt cheap when you divide it out.
That's the second option on their order thing.
Oh, we should talk about that then. Because
it's not as cheap as it was in the Kickstarter, but it's a really slick looking thing, and I thought it was worth talking about because I love character portrait stuff. Those are always fun to play with. So that it is called again Portrait Workshop, and go check it out.
I'm hoping, again, because I play far more modern and sci-fi, but I'm hoping that maybe by supporting this, that it'll encourage them that after a successful run putting together fantasy, that they might want to go make some packs for modern and sci-fi. And I would totally be down for having those as well. So yes, I think fantastic. Cool. Cool. Are we ready to go into the salon?
I think we are ready to go into the salon. Let me do
bumper
this,
us, please,
because we don't have a true salon bumper. So, little Super Friends action. And then the stupid misdirected Mark word scramble jumped in there. Professional.
That's us.
We're gonna get ourselves a tweet. We're gonna get a stream deck for you, Bob. Map all that shit to keys. You just push a key. Anyway, welcome to the salon. As the pandemic continues, we've been feeling a little bit of the strain, running the show week to week, running it remote, all of that. So we don't want to skip shows, and we don't want to pod fade. And truthfully, I still get a ton of spoons from being on the show. Not always a ton of spoons for prepping the show, but being on the show with you guys and with the chat room and everything else is fantastic. And I love doing it. But I don't always love prepping the show, the scripting, the research, and all of that. So starting tonight, and probably for the next few weeks, we're going to kind of take a break from our normal show format. And we're going to do some of these salon shows. This is an old room that Chris and I had used many, many years ago. We're going to adhere to most of the format for the salon. It is a less structured room because it's about things that we're just going to come up with. We're going to come up with things that are going on in our gaming worlds or adjacent to our gaming worlds, and then just have a chat about them, as one would do if we were sitting in a salon in high back leather chairs with our highball glasses, having a sip around the fire, 6 feet apart, of course. Because, but yeah, truthfully, and I will say this, right? The move to the salon falls a lot on me because I do the primary prep for the show, and I started to feel a little bit of the burnout. And I don't want to burn out. Yeah, I don't want to burn out. So we did this on Pandas as well, right? We downshifted Pandas to the chit chat. We're going to move this show to the salon, and because we're not doing what we normally do, much like Pandas, we're taking these out of the normal show numbering, right? They're just going to be referred to as the salon episodes, and we'll just have as many of these as we kind of need to have. And occasionally, if we're feeling up to it, we'll do a structured show in between. And then eventually we'll just go back to our normal format as kind of like the world normalizes again, right? It's hard to know when that's going to be. But we don't want to not talk about gaming stuff. We're just going to do it in a little more relaxed format.
Yeah, because the salon's about gaming. We're going to use it to draw from our own lives. We're going to talk about what we've seen, things we're playing, what media are we consuming, whatever else is going on in our lives. As we talk about these things, we're going to make gaming connections to them. How we learn from what we do in our non-gaming life and apply it to our gaming life. And just basically let the conversation organically unform. Misdirected Mark, word scramble. But just as importantly along the way, we're going to ask the chat rooms for life to ask their questions, and Bob will bring them up for us. So to get us started, Phil, what have you been playing?
Yeah, first let me address the chat room. The chat room's like, are you guys really going to go back to the regular format after the salon? Yes, we will.
Yes, we will.
Yes.
And the reason why is because one of the things I love about doing this show is doing the academic discussion of gaming topics and things like that. And, if life was a little less stressful, right now, again, if we're talking about, Maslow's pyramid of needs, right? We're at the bottom right now, securing, safety and basic resources. We are not at the upper levels where we used to be, which is, all about deep thought and self-actualization.
Which part of Maslow's hierarchy is alcohol?
Yeah, it's what helps you get back up the pyramid. So
we're going to come back, and we're going to come back, and we're going to make it. We're going to keep being positive. We're going to keep using this to stay positive during this whole time.
Exactly.
And engage with all of you, because we've got some good ideas, and we're looking forward to eventually coming back to structured topics. I think we've got some good ones coming down the line. So Phil, what have you been playing?
Yeah. Talking about the stuff I've been playing. So RPG-wise, things I've been playing, I am GMing Dungeon Crawl Classics and have been for a while. Our group has done its funnel. It has done its first level adventure. Is this the first level adventure? You guys aren't second level yet. You guys are still first level.
We're still first.
Yes.
All right. So this is the first level adventure. This adventure's long. Like, we've been playing this thing for a long time. But I think we're getting close. So yeah, I've been playing DCC. I've been running DCC. I'm playing in Chris's Call of Cthulhu Wild West game. That's been pretty interesting. I have a kind of stoic mountain man character that at our last cliffhanger is about to find some zombies. So there's going to be a reckoning for Castle. I'm running Forbidden Lands. I believe we're coming up on session 22 of Forbidden Lands. That's tremendous. I don't have too many campaigns that go into session 22 of anything. And I'm trying to get an Icons game off the ground. That has been harder than it would look. I think we'll get there, maybe. But we're definitely trying. Video game wise, I've been playing a shit ton of Mario Kart Tour on iOS. I've gotten that game down pretty well. Like I'm getting a good feel for the economies of that game and how to kind of game them to get stuff without sinking ridiculous amounts of money into that game, because it is actually possible to spend a ridiculous amount of money on a fairly regular basis. I will say, for disclosure purposes, I am spending a little money. I'm playing 2 different sessions of Minecraft. I've got 2 different mod packs. I've got the group one that we're all in. And I've got another one, FTB Academy, that I'm also playing in.
Are you back in the regular mod server, or are we still crashing?
I jump back and forth. Oh no, I fixed the crashing. So I fixed the crashing. We realized that was probably my out of control wheat farm that was had backed up so much wheat that the system had to process it all. I basically logged in and had to wait 10 minutes. And then all of a sudden the system magically caught up. Actually, it crashed twice. Schmitty fixed it so it would crash less frequently. It made it through the gauntlet and came back to life. And then everybody else was fine. The chunks that my house live in are no longer a danger to anyone traveling nearby. I went and turned off all the farms. I have like 33,000 wheat. I don't need to make any more. Anyway, that's Minecraft, and I've been dabbling a little with Factorio. I like Factorio actually quite a bit. It just lacks the architectural piece for me. Like, it's fun making efficient processes and belts and stuff, and I need to learn a whole lot more, but Schmitty's been kind of showing me some of the stuff. Schmitty, by the way, if people are into Factorio, Schmitty's on Twitch broadcasting their Factorio play, I think almost daily, like at least like it's daily or every other day. You can totally catch Schmitty playing Factorio. All right. So anyway, those have been primarily the things that I've been playing over the last couple of weeks. Bob, what about you? You're playing a bunch of stuff.
Oh, we're all playing more RPGs than we were before the lockdown, which is interesting because you would think that it would kind of get smaller, but it got bigger. Phrasing? I am playing in Phil's DCC game. I am playing in Phil's Forbidden Lands game. And I will be playing in Phil's Icons game if we can ever get it off the ground. I am also playing in Chris's 5e Eberron game and Chris's Scum and Villainy game, which is getting close to the end. And I just started up, we had our second session this past Friday of Jared Rasher's Streets of Avalon game using 5th edition. And that is a lot of fun.
Hey, I hear that Streets of Avalon thing's pretty good.
Yeah, that's Streets of Avalon. That's a sharp-looking book.
Yeah.
Some quality work there.
The cover, man. The cover alone.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
It's well edited.
For video games, Minecraft and a little bit of Factorio here and there when I want to change up gears. And I've also been playing a lot of Mahjong and Solitaire. I've got the Solitaire pack from Microsoft, so it's got 5 or 6 different, the standard, now I can't remember the damn name, Pyramid, Tri-Peaks, Spider, there's like 5 different kinds of them, and then in Mahjong. So that's the stuff that I've been playing.
Sweet.
What about you, Jerry?
Well, for role-playing games, I'm in Phil's DCC game. I'm in Chris's 5e Eberron game. I'm in the FM Gamers Monster of the Week game, which just wrapped up. We're going to start a different game in 2 weeks. I'm in Chris's Western Call Cthulhu game, Chris's Scum and Villainy game. Our Friday game just wrapped up Blue Rose, and we're about to start Aegon, which is a Kickstarter game about Greek gods. And every other week, I'm running Savage Eberron for my own home group. So get a chance to play a whole bunch of things from sci-fi to horror to fantasy, and just getting a chance to play a different, DCC is a different game than Eberron or Blue Rose. So they're all different kinds of fantasy games, which is fun.
Yeah.
For video games, I'm still in Marvel Strike Force. I left the Rust Belt Avengers last year, Origins, and joined with the Knights of the Night, and we just got a whole bunch of new recruits. Several who had been, there are some very competitive teams out there that if you don't like immediately spend all your time just grinding for the team, they kick you out. So a bunch of them have come to us because we're like, hey, come on, hang out with us. We'll chat and talk. And so it's been fun. And of course, Minecraft, which I'll talk about later, but Minecraft's been giving me spoons. That and the fact that with Bob's help, I stole a town-sized temple and moved it to our marina. So, and there have been some pictures on the Slack room for that. So that's been fun. It's been get out at night and just kind of hanging out. So that's what I've been playing. So moving on from there, Bill?
Yeah, so now what we're going to do is each of us, we're going to go round table on this. Each of us is going to take one of the games that we just talked about, and we're going to talk a little bit about the game and then and then branch that into a gaming topic for all of us to discuss. So Jared, would you like to kick it off with your first game?
So my first game is the Savage Eberron game I'm running. I'm
Cool.
using Kristen Serrano's Eberron Savage Worlds rules, and I'm running kind of a mashup of the original D&D 3.5 Eberron modules that they put out with some major storyline changes. And because I've got a really good group of players who had some good backstories, we've been interspacing it with other side quests and backstories and things along that line. And so it's been a lot of fun. They've done a really interesting job of solving problems in ways that I wasn't expecting, and I love that. As a GM, I like nothing better than when I've got a plan for the adventure and the players go with a totally different way to solve the problem while still staying within the feel and theme of the genre. I don't mind being surprised. I don't have to. I'm no longer that 80s GM where, God damn it, you stay on my railroad or nothing else.
I was so much this GM.
Yes. Oh yeah.
I was so much this GM that I used to have a really bad problem of leading players into the solution by the way I describe things.
Yeah.
Like I would have an idea, like I'd have the optimal solution in my head, and then as I was describing everything, I would subtly describe it with all the pieces that most players could pick up on, and then I'd be like, "Oh, they figured it out."
Yeah, you can go with the door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3.
Well, that's Schrodinger's door, right? So no matter which one you open is the solution, or the shit you want to have happen.
But we've had some neat things because I ran the game for 2 weeks with a larger group, and then people couldn't make it, so we added some new players, which ended up being Chris and his partner Jen and her sister Bridget, which has been nice for running on Zoom because they all live in the same house together, so it's easy to. I can get one of them to the table, we get all 3, and plus some of the other gamers that really like Sean and Greg. And they developed some really interesting integrated character backstories and have been playing off of them, which has meant that the adventures, especially being Wizards of the Coast adventures, which are not known for their high level of role-playing potential, have gone really well because Eberron's got a lot you can delve out of that. And so it's taught me how to just move the plot around to fit whatever the characters' backstories are. And we've been integrating some of the NPCs they've encountered. I stole some ideas from Chris's game. And it's been fun. I'm running a mystery plot right now. I'm running, between each module, I run a non-module adventure that's more based on the characters' backstories to kind of give them some downtime and give them a chance to do something besides run around dungeon delving. And I'm not the best at running mysteries, but this is what I've kind of done before. And it's been interesting because I've learned a lot of the things that I've picked up from like Pandas about how to lay out clues properly so each clue leads to a bigger clue. However, I am GMing for a group of players who watch procedural crime dramas habitually. So there were eight crime scenes with progressive clues, and they figured out pretty much what's going on by crime scene number 2, which is fine. And after that, which was fun because then they went to the 3rd and 4th crime scenes just to confirm their suspicions before heading off to do what they wanted to do. Actually made it easier for me as a GM. it's like you said, Phil, not having to. I knew what was supposed to happen at each location to give them more information. I didn't feel the need to push them to the other location.
I think that's actually like a really good point. If we want to have a just a discussion for a second, right? There's a when you're running a mystery, you're running against two things, right? So your players, there's a meta level thing going on, right? Your players are also solving the mystery, right? So sometimes the players will solve the mystery based on knowledge that the characters don't necessarily have. The characters have all the evidence, but the players like synthesize the evidence into the solution. And then there are other times where the players are completely clueless about what's going on, even though their characters can see all the evidence. And then like you use a few skill rolls to kind of lay out pieces for them, right? So it's this really interesting balance, and it's really hard. Like I will say consistently that mystery is the hardest genre to run, especially at a campaign level. Like even just mystery to mystery is a lot of work because you're balancing when will the players know enough to take action? Well, when the characters know enough to take action, but you also have to count for when will the players potentially know enough? Like like your players, I am a habitual watcher of crime dramas. Like I have binged CSI, Criminal Minds, Law and Order, like so many crime dramas. And it does not like, I mean, I'm the same way. Like once it starts, I'm like, oh, I see what's going on here. And so there's this really interesting balancing act of like, I need to put out enough clues in case they don't get it, that the characters can kind of pick up enough stuff so that I can tell them what the answer is, versus, oh shit, 2 crime scenes in, they've figured it out. What do we do for the rest of the session? And the answer is action, right? So if they figure it out early, then your guy goes missing, right? Because now our new mystery is, where'd the guy go, right? Like where's our perk?
Part of the fun is that they realized, because we've had trouble getting everybody to the table, obviously, they realized that all of their magic detection players were not available and hadn't been in this entire scenario so far for 2 weeks. But they had a lot of good NPC resources. And so they just decided, hey, you know what? We've got this NPC that we've helped in the past. Let's go get them involved in this, which actually got them in depth. Well, not in depth, but got them more involved in the greater meta plot anyway. And that was fun to see. Just when the players didn't have something available, I didn't do this whole thing of, well, let's see, do you know anybody? And let's go role play you guys going downtown and argue. They wanted to move on with the mystery. So yes, this person, you go there. We had a 5-minute character interaction where they got to convince this other person's patron to let them take this person along with them, and give them that vignette they want to have of interaction, but don't slow down their progression by changing speeds so that they're now slogging through a bunch of skill checks when they're doing a really good job of role-playing their way through it and making a few dice rolls. That, and this is an adventure that involves the Delkier. So one of the characters is borderline dealing with some severe mental takeover and has been playing it very well. There's an image that every time you look at it, if you roll badly, you go slightly under the control of the Delkier, or at least you start having trouble with perception and things like that. So they, being good role players, they played into that failure. It wasn't like, okay, now we're never going to look at this again. It was the players were coming up with excuses for why somebody might accidentally look at it, which is another thing to do is don't penalize them for playing into it. Like I decided, okay, if they're going to play and take the penalties involved with having this with them and occasionally seeing it, don't suddenly dump every Murphy's Law on them so that every bad thing's going to happen. Let them use it as a role-playing hook as opposed to a way to just beat your players up for, they have the cursed item, now I get to screw them over kind of thing. So, all right.
Cool.
And that is it for that one. So, Phil, what have you been up to?
So my Forbidden Lands game just finished its first major arc. I don't even know if it's really the first major arc. I don't even know if it was an arc as much as it's kind of all the stuff that happened before the next structured arc is about to take off. But I guess it is, right? I guess that the arc is all about the players getting their stronghold and finally securing it, because the last adventure was about fighting the demon that was locked inside the in the bottom of their stronghold in a vault. And that fight went hilariously the wrong way.
We're prepared for this. Let's go. Holy shit, we're not prepared for this.
The players did a great job, actually. They did a bunch of research. They built a bunch of stuff, and they're like, all right, we got this thing. We know what we're going to do with it. And they throw open the door, and they've got, they know it's weak. It's got a weakness to light. They've made a bullseye lantern to shine on it and burn it with. And they learn stuff about this creature, and they're ready to slaughter this thing. And its first attack is a fear attack, which shatters all of them. So it was like the first moment of Ghostbusters, right? Like you guys were all steeled up and ready to go, and then this thing like howls, and you're all running upstairs, broken. And as a GM, I'm like, well, shit. Like, I got to salvage this scene somehow. And I did. I very quickly came up with a way. I got the healer back on their feet, and the healer got everyone else back on their feet. And then it was a pretty it was a throwdown brawl to take it down. But that arc concluded, and I'm getting ready now to launch the next arc. And I've been thinking about it. I'm like, I'm giving thought to making the significance of starting a new arc, right? So kind of like when we see series of movies where when we go from the end of one movie to the beginning of next, some things have changed, right? So if we look at the end of Star Wars to the beginning of Empire, or the end of Empire, even better, to the beginning of Jedi, right? At the end of Empire, we leave Luke with his newly minted hand standing on the bridge of the medical ship, right? The Millennium Falcon's taking off looking for Han. And then we start Jedi, and, Luke's a Jedi Knight, and there's this whole plot to save Han. And I'm starting to think about what I need to do for my new arc. And I'm like, okay, well, I need to advance time. I think there's some other things that kind of we should talk about that happen in that space, that are more character centric. Plus, I also need to put in the seeds for the new campaign, which the players have done everything they need to do to reveal those seeds. So I just now need to actually put a scene around it. Do I want to introduce any new NPCs during this period of time? Plus, there's some unresolved strings. They left the town that they were based in for a while in the middle of political turmoil, and haven't been back in weeks, possibly months.
Yep.
So there's got to be some consequences and repercussions for there. So I've been thinking about that. How do you make your next arc feel special? Right? Not feel like the next session, but make it feel like the next movie / book in the series. So that's kind of that's been my rough thought. So Jerry, I mean, you've run a bunch of stuff. Bob, you've read more shit than I can name. What are your thoughts about that kind of transition from one arc to the next?
Well, my first thought would be, first of all, give them some minor adjustment changes for the next scene. So if they're all, I know Forbidden Lands is a little bit more harsh on resources, but give them a resource they didn't have before. Maybe the guy who's been trying to get better armor upgrades from leather to studded leather or whatever. Or they've got something very minor, like somebody's got a magic item that is extremely minor. Somebody's got a pillow that lets them get a good night's sleep no matter how bad the weather is, or something that shows them that they've progressed a little bit. and also have something going on with one of the NPCs or a bunch of the NPCs that they know. Somebody they know is missing. It's the Jedi thing, They start out, things have progressed, people are in different situations. What has gone on since last time they were there? And that's a good session 22.0 to play with for your group,
Yeah.
What do they want to see as a change?
Yeah, I've gone down some of that route, right? I started asking the players, I'm definitely time shifting us forward, which means that they'll have more resources because their stronghold produces resources per week.
Yep.
So we'll talk about, what improvements they'll make to the stronghold and things like that. Bob, what else? You saw the post I sent today. What are your thoughts?
So I like where Jerry went with that, especially the part about the NPCs. It would be interesting to have some kind of development. Like right before we ended, we had a scene with one of our NPCs who basically got attacked by a player character because the player character was suffering from trauma from the fear effect and hallucinated that this NPC was a monster. And so we had to have a scene where Sean's character basically had to be the HR department and go talk this employee down and make sure, are you good? And Sean was like, here, have a gold piece. And it's like, gold? Are you freaking like a silver would have been generous and you're offering him a gold? It's like, that's
right. To unpack what happened. Jim's character had suffered delusions, hallucinations. He'd suffered hallucinations from the fear effect. And after the battle, no one knew that Jim was in bad shape.
Yeah.
He just, he left, like the battle was finished and he's like, I'm going to go wandering around keep looking for a place to put my tailor shop. And the girl in May, who's our handy woman who keeps the keep up as much as this ruined keep can be kept up, was working in one of the rooms, and Jim fails his roll and he's like, oh, that's a demon. And he goes to attack her and he makes a second check just before he does any harm to her. But he had run her down, pushed her up against the wall and drew his blade. And then one of the other characters came around the corner and was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And pulled him off. But we played it out that Gerlin was kind of freaked out about the whole thing. She was,
she was thinking about leaving. I can't stay here with him.
Very uncool. And then as it came out to be that oh no, he had suffered damage from that magical attack. And Sean's character, Anna Ladora, she got in there and kind of brokered an apology, right? Was able to explain to the NPC, right? This was a thing, et cetera, et cetera. And it was fine. We got through that whole scene and it worked. The scene worked fine. And, in the end, Sean was like, look, we're really appreciative of all the work you do around here. And, it's dangerous. You live in a ruined magical castle, right? This place is dangerous. And, these things, these things happen.
Yeah.
So, we did play through it. I do see some comments from the chat room, which we'll pick up at the break about consent and hallucinations and stuff like that. So we'll definitely talk about that because I do want to cover that because that is a tricky thing, right? That's a tricky thing. So yeah. I do think actually it's a great suggestion, Bob, that we should probably look a little more at both Galvant and Gerlin as kind of what has happened since.
Yeah. There's all kinds of ways that you can go with it. There could be all of a sudden 2 of our employees have struck up a relationship with each other and it's oh, interesting. I didn't expect that to happen. Okay, cool. Don't let it interfere with your work, otherwise go do, have fun.
No, I like the, I think that might be a fun, those might be a couple fun questions to ask you guys, who in the keep is, got feelings for someone else in the keep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just use that to kind of, kind of play off some side scenes. I have a couple things I know I want to hit in that session, but there's probably a couple of other role-playing scenes that would be fun to do based on how you guys answer.
Yep.
So cool. I dig that. I also want to leave. I also want to. I'm going to pass on to Bob and let Bob talk about one of his games, and then I think we'll be right on time to hit. The break.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we started playing Streets of Avalon. Jared Rasher decided he wanted to put together a game, and he's got myself, John Arcadian from Gnome Stew and Encoded Designs, the Weregator, friend of the show and member of the Royal Court, me, Brandon Barnes, and 1, 2, 3. That's 4 of us. And so we sat down, had a Zoom session, did a session 0 and all that stuff. And the interesting thing is that this is essentially not the normal group that I play with. And I've had some small variations in the group. There's always like at least 1 or 2 people. And it's like, this is like a totally different group that I've never played with before, other than like one con game here or something like that. And it was like there's like this whole new thing where I'm like, holy cow, I'm playing with some people that I've never played with before, which was very interesting because it's been a while since I've played an extended campaign with other people. It's always been like the same tables of 3 or 4 people. The other interesting thing is that this was the first time that I got started on a game from scratch, session 0, over Zoom, doing a remote session. We've had games where we were already in game, and then we transitioned to Zoom because of the stay-at-home order. But this is a fresh game that we're like, we're going to pick up a fresh game, and we had to sit down and do this so all of this face-to-face discussion of how the game's going to go and table rules and safety and all that stuff was all done without the benefit of that full, true face-to-face contact.
Yep.
So it was a little different. It had a little bit of a different feel. It still worked, but it was like there was a couple times where it's like, like I got to look up and like look at the particular part of the screen. Like I don't have a person sitting right next to me at the table. It changes the perspective a little bit. So I thought that was noteworthy that we had to pick that up remotely.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I had a little bit of a chat like this with. I think I've had this chat with Senda, and I think I've had it in the Mumble, which is I think that if there's a takeaway from this pandemic, I think that game designers can no longer consider online play as a bolt-on to a game, but really need to start considering how your game's going to play online as a part of your game.
Yeah.
Because as we've seen, like we've reached a part in our lives where it wasn't optional to play online. Right? It was either play online or don't. And it's really interesting because online play has often been if you can't get a face-to-face group, ...
Yeah.
As opposed
online group or whatever.
Right. As opposed to it being now this is my personal, I'm sure that other people are like primary online players and things like that. So please don't take this as the speaking of the entire
absolutely
community. But we were brought. I mean, this genre, this hobby was birthed in the 70s and 80s when there was not an online way to play. So its roots have always been face-to-face tabletop RPGs, and over the years has adapted itself to online play. But I think that no longer can games consider online play as a secondary design consideration. I think that how you run a game how you design a game, you're going to have to think like in both avenues. Like if you run this online, what does this game need to do? And if you run this in person, what does this game need to do? And how do you manage the differences? Because there are differences, like you said. There are big, they're not enormous differences.
Yeah.
But there are differences in the way you prep to run an online game versus a tabletop game. There are differences in how much material you can push. There's differences in the kinds of scenes you can have, because one-on-one dramatic scenes work really well, but group chaos scenes never work online. Like you can get
super hard to pull off.
Right. You can get 4 or 5 people in an excited moment at a table, all like, yelling and pointing fingers and I mean, I've had, hilarious paranoia games where, everybody at the table's like gone off simultaneously, but like none of that works online.
Yeah. Zoom. There's definitely a Zoom etiquette that needs to be done. I've been on a couple of games recently where it's been tough because when somebody's talking, a lot of times their camera's when it's active and you're not going to get anything else. So if you hit somebody who either monologues for 5 minutes at a time without taking a breath, or somebody who just runs around taking actions all the time and not letting somebody else jump in, you end up with somebody dominating the game in a bad way. Especially if you get a player like that who isn't using their screen time to generate opportunities for other players.
Yeah.
And
honestly, I think you should seriously consider a table rule where when you're in a Zoom session, or if you've got the capability of putting everybody on the screen at once and not just doing the person who's talking, have everybody up so that the GM at the very least can be looking and go, oh, that person's trying to get my attention to interject or to say something or whatever. So if somebody does get into a monologue and starts eating screen time, you don't have that, like, there's no recourse because you can't see anybody else.
Yeah. I'm a big fan for Zoom, and, we can roll into the break in just a moment, but for Zoom, I love gallery view. And what I actually do when I'm running games, now I will say when I run games, I run them on 2 monitors. So I can put my Zoom over on 1 monitor, but instead of running it full monitor for my games, I've been making it into a tall strip. And so it just puts everybody's images like one above the other. Like I'm doing it right now on my 13-inch Mac screen for the show. And I've got all 3 of us where I can see us all simultaneously and the show notes. And this way, like if I'm running, like say I was running a game and Bob's in, I'm in a scene with Bob, I can look up and still see Jerry. Is Jerry engaged? Is Jerry holding his hand up because he wants to add something to the scene, something like that? I think that's really important, right? If you do speaker view where your screen is dominated by the person who's speaking, you can't track everybody in the scene. So I really like gallery view for Zoom for just that effect. Now, I'm actually curious because I haven't messed with it. I may try to make it a strip across the top of my screen.
Now that's not to say though that there aren't specific instances where you may be like, all right, we're going to go to speaker view for a particular thing. Like when I was playing the eyes in DCC, it would be very beneficial to go to speaker view so that I could try and emote with my eyes and you could see better what I was trying to do.
Right.
But that's
let me just say that was heroic having to do the
it was a lot of damn
eyes
fun
only on Zoom, right? That was so I do think I think it's interesting that you're now having a game experience that's solely on Zoom because it has to do everything it needs to do using just that media. Cool.
Very cool.
Cool. All right. So
let's take a break.
Yes.
Make it a break. Hey, but before we do that, I'm going to talk about another show on the network.
Thank you, Bob.
So, we have a show called The Lounge. I think you should check this show out. Doc Palindrome finds the best, the brightest, the most fun game designers and sits down to have a cool chat with them. You never know what kind of conversation is going to come up in the lounge. Check it out. All right, our chat room. I told them, hey, we're gonna look for some questions, and they're like, oh, sweet, and being the generous person that she is, Professor Fox, Andy decided that she would spur things along and said, okay, we'll do word association. So what's the first thing you think of when I say potbelly pig?
Is this getting us some questions?
Well, there's one question that we gleaned out of it. I said we really kind of wanted to have these questions be gaming related. So the question eventually morphed into, what is the best kind of animal companion for each type of gamer? Which is an interesting question.
That's a big part, because a lot of my gamers like companions and sidekicks.
I dig animal companions. I think the trickiest part to animal companions is, and we have this in our game right now, because Sean's character is a druid who has a dog.
Yep.
And we've had to talk about mechanically how to treat the dog, because Glenn, who is a dog owner, and Bob's a dog owner, neither one of them want to see the dog get killed, right, in the game. So mechanically, Sean's dog is not a statted creature. It adds a skill die to Sean's like attack rolls and things like that, because it kind of aids Sean in attacking. And then occasionally we let it do a couple things when Sean gives it commands, but the understanding is always like, if we treat it with stats, it could get killed. And
in fact, it's probably very likely that it will get killed.
Yeah.
Yes,
that's always a big thing.
Yeah, and so I think the first thing is when you talk about animal companions in a game, because I think animal companions are cool as hell, but I do think you have to talk about rules of engagement. Like, can monsters attack the animal companion? Because if the answer is yes, then people got to be comfortable. Like, can you lose your animal companion?
I think it also has to do with how they use the animal companion, because I've had some players who use the animal companion just like you do to be, an extra skill die or something, and others who use the animal companion like an entirely additional combatant in the game.
Uh-huh. And if you use it like a combatant,
that's just it. Then it becomes like Bob in Chris's game. We have 2 of our 4 players have companions. We have Jen's Ranger has a pet griffin named Shiny, and Dave's Ken's wizard / cleric / fighter has a intelligent owl that is oftentimes there, but neither of them tends to get into combat. Shiny does a little bit, but more, again, as simply an additional attack that the ranger gets, as opposed to being a separate character.
My 2 best animal companions I've ever seen. One of them was one I played in a one-shot. I played in an Ebron game. I was playing an Urban Ranger, the Monty Cook Urban Ranger variant for 3.5. Mm-hmm. And I was like, hey, I want an animal companion. I want it to be a dog, because I thought that's a perfectly good urban companion. But because we're playing Ebron, can my dog be a Warforged dog? It doesn't need any special stats or any special abilities. Nope. It can just use the dog stat block. But can it just be gears, wood, and clockwork? And the DM was like, sure, that sounds fine. Like, he's like, it doesn't do anything extra. And I'm like, nope. And he's like, and it heals the same way a Warforged does. And I'm like, yep. And that I loved, like, I just loved the picture of that character, the Urban Ranger and his clockwork dog next to him. Yeah. And then the other one I played was in a Iron Heroes one-shot at Gen Con. The character I had a companion monkey, and I very quickly realized I could use the monkey to flank creatures and immediately get all of the in Iron Heroes it was called precision damage, which was sneak attack damage essentially. So I had a flank monkey that I would just every turn I would just monkey flanks the creature, and then I skew it through for 100 d6 damage. I don't think it was 100. It was a lot. Iron Hero was a lot.
That's where we got the term flank monkey.
That's where flank monkey came from. Right. Yes. Yeah.
we've seen as a player, I had a character in Pathfinder who had a pseudo dragon as his advanced. He was a summoner to begin with, so he had an advanced animal companion. Part of the fun of it was the pseudo dragon just talked to everybody using telepathy, because that's what they have. And they kind of used him as kind of like a mobile net, and the GM used him like that. We had a lot of fun with that until the first time the dragon actually talked out loud. And we went from level 3, we're at like level 13, and the dragon hasn't actually talked out loud for the first time. And the role-playing potential that came out of the barbarian, realizing that this thing could talk the entire time, was just fun.
Monkey, you can talk?
Exactly.
Yeah, I taught myself to talk.
The flip side of that is in the Eberron game I'm running, they have a pseudo dragon named Schema that they picked up, and they're actually using that as a participatory character whenever they split the party. If they have to split the party, send the pseudo dragon off, and whoever's not in that group plays the dragon.
Oh, that's cool.
It can't do a lot. Normally that's Chris. And Chris playing a pseudo dragon is interesting and fun.
But he loves voices and stuff, so he always makes the best of that.
And so that works well because it gives them a reason to have, we're going to split the party, but we don't want to have a situation where one or two players aren't able to participate. So these two go off here, you go off with Schema, and while you're with Schema, somebody's playing Schema in that situation. And sometimes two players will trade off playing the same character just so they can interact with the scene, and it avoids the lone wolf player problem. And I like that a lot.
I think that's pretty cool.
So, all right. So that was my take. Bob?
I got nothing.
Bob, you had a great animal companion in Dungeon World.
Oh yeah, my wolf.
Yeah, Laneth, the wolf.
Yeah, that was my animal companion. Laneth eventually became my holy symbol.
Our whole party protected that wolf. Like
that was a good time.
If Chris put that wolf in danger, like the whole party be like, I got it, I'm covering it. Like, yeah.
Like, I need to pray to the lovers of the elven gods that I worshipped. I would like touch my wolf companion and hold on to her and then do my little prayer thing. And yeah, that was a good time.
I think animal companions are a lot of fun. I just think from a session 0 point of view, you have to talk about animal violence as part of that, because I always think of, Jerry, and I'm sure you remember this, the AD&D, the cartoon in the DM's guide, one more move and your familiar gets it.
I also think of ways when going over to V&V again, in some games the animal companion can sometimes overshadow the hero. And this happened in V&V where somebody rolled up a V&V character and their superhero had one or two minor powers. They rolled pet, and the pet had better powers than they did, to the point where 4 sessions in, they just dropped the main character and played the pet.
That's legit. That's
totally
fine.
legit.
That's great.
Yes.
So I think there's a little extra GMing advice, right? Session 0 that up if you're going to do animal companions. You definitely do not want to upset a player by running, their companion dog through, and then find out you've got 2, people who are, in your group that are rescuing, animals or something, and you've got a whole X card situation. So a little prep goes a long way for making sure that's okay. But otherwise, I'm like 100% for it. I think animal companions are wickedly cool.
All right, we should jump into the next segment.
Absolutely. So in the next segment, we talk about media that we are consuming, right? So we're going to talk about a show, book, comic book, whatever that you're consuming, and relate it back to gaming. And since Bob has disappeared off camera, Jerry, tell me about one of the shows or something you've been watching.
Well, I watched Let Me In, which was the American remake of Let the Right Ones In, which was a Scandinavian horror movie about a little boy who finds out that his next door neighbor is a vampire.
Wow. I never even heard of this.
Oh, the Scandinavian one's very, very good. The American version is a really good update. And it was watching it was fun to look at it from a writing standpoint, having seen the original and loving the original, and then seeing the American remake and seeing how they kept most of the story beats the same, but changed some of the characters, changed some of the interactions. The result of most of the interactions was the same, but how they interacted was different. Where the tensions were in the story were a little bit different, and also the resolution and especially the denouement were both different than in the original movie, and not in a bad way, just a different resolution. You were not watching the exact same movie. It wasn't like watching The American Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which is a decent movie, but it's pretty much the same movie, just plot point for plot point.
Yeah.
This was keeping the suspense in the horror, but also there's definitely, sometimes when you watch a European film, there's a definite feel to how they're doing character interactions and plot and bleakness and so on. This was an American take on it that gave a little bit more characterization that I liked. And so from a gaming standpoint, it taught me that, you can take something that you've seen before, done before, maybe even your players have it and have done it or read it, and how to keep the theme the same, but change some of the details to make it a different story, but still compelling. And it's literally what I'm doing with Eberron. Go ahead, Sean. So you were about to say something. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, like, White Plume Mountain, except as a horror story.
Yeah?
I'm sorry, not White Plume Mountain. Expedition to the Barrier Peaks.
Okay.
As a horror, and not as a straight-up exploration. Okay, but tell me how that's relating to your Eberron game.
Well, that's literally what I'm doing at Eberron, is I'm taking 5 modules that were adventures that were all fun to play and pretty well put together. And I've changed the main protagonist a little bit that the heroes work with. For example, the original adventure, you're hired by somebody to do a job. In this adventure, you're hired because that person died. The people they sent to go find her didn't come back. And what the actual MacGuffin in the game does has been changed a little bit to fit the characters' backstories, so that it's not just a MacGuffin. It's a MacGuffin that ties into a couple of them. Changed a few of the minor allegiances so that some of the things that the players have a tie to, both if those of you who don't play Eberron is basically fantasy noir with mega corporations. It's basically fantasy noir cyberpunk, and several of the players have ties to some of the great houses, and so I changed a few of the plot hooks so that it becomes kind of the great houses, and also changed some of the encounters because some of the players like are obsessed with the elemental side of the game that gets kind of washed over, and so I just took some of the story beats and where it could have been just it's just a room with an elemental item in it. Make the elemental sentient so they can talk to it and ask it questions and that sort of thing. Keep the plot the same. Keep the phases of the game the same of where they're going to go and what they're supposed to do, but change how they do it and how they work with it so that it doesn't have to be the same story, especially since Chris ran all these back 10 years ago when they first came out. And it's fun because it's also the fact that the new Eberron campaign, that's the official campaign for 5e, takes a lot of these same story beats and changes it. There are some adventures that I've played in the new Eberron game for 5e that I'm like, I already know what's going on. It's a different plot, but it's the same framework. So take something you like, change a few story beats, and modify it to work with your players. And you can take a fun story and make it even better and get your players more invested in it.
Remix it, man.
Yeah. If they like to do more encounters and exploration, don't just have them come to town. Put a couple of encounters there that they can talk to and that sort of thing. So that's what I learned from that. I learned from just looking at how that can be done properly. And if you like suspense movies, Let Me In is a good movie. So is Not the Right One In, but Let Me In is a decent American movie. So
cool.
Bob, now that you're back, what's your one thing?
So excuse me. I've been watching the new Magnum PI. I've mentioned it before on the show. And the writers on this show are doing a super good job of bringing the feels. Almost every episode, there's some kind of emotional beat. There's some kind of touching moment. The show has a ton of heart. It's super respectful of servicemen and women. The veterans especially are always treated with respect on the show, and they have some plot lines running through the show where they'll give you a gut punch with just like right in the feels, like, oh, this story just got me. And I found it very interesting that they do such a great job of bringing heart to that show. There's a lot of times where you'll get what you think is going to be your typical, oh, here's a person that is, they just had an episode, a school was getting random donations of needed things because they didn't have a budget to get the stuff that they needed. And someone basically left them a note and said, put this box outside. It's a suggestion box. You put the things in the suggestion box that you need, and then I will bring you the stuff from the suggestion box. So they had a secret benefactor. Okay. Come to find out, the secret benefactor was stealing all of the stuff that it was giving to the school. And you're thinking, oh man, here's this person that you think is a good person that's doing this nice thing, and it turns out they're a thief, which is kind of a flip, you know?
Yeah.
And it just made me think, like, you don't always have to have everything be the black and white. Sometimes it's great to have a mustache twirling villain, but sometimes taking the idea that I just mentioned and doing it the other way, where you've got a bad guy doing a bad thing, but they're actually doing it for a good reason that makes you stop and go, oh, maybe they're not really a bad guy. And it adds depth to that character. I think some people don't play with that enough.
I mean, I love when I love when bad guys turn out not to be completely bad, because it messes, players love when things are black and white, right? Like when it's very binary, like, oh no, that's a bad guy. We can go slaughter bad guy. It's a lot harder when bad guy is also good guy somewhere else.
Yeah. Throw them in the morally gray area and watch them flounder for a bit.
Yeah, like, is Dr. Doom bad for Latvia? Like, no, right? Like,
exactly.
Like, is he bad for the rest of the world? Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Like, sometimes.
Right? Yeah, sometimes yes, sometimes no. I'm actually reading a new Dr. Doom comic where I think he's actually on the good side. It's really interesting. But anyway, but yeah,
he was always on Doom's side.
Yes.
I mean, here's the thing. Sometimes I like a villain to be straight up bad, because I want the players to have the satisfaction of running that villain down.
Yeah.
And sometimes I like villains to be gray, because players will often find some really interesting things to have to do about that, right? Like they will wrestle with what to do with a either principled bad guy or a bad guy who's doing good things on the side, those kinds of things. I mean, sometimes it's still, we're going to kill him, but now I'm going to kind of take up that responsibility. Like I had to put your bad guy down, but I'm going to be the one who delivers stuff to the school.
Yeah.
But you have to also remember, and you kind of mentioned this, don't go to that morally gray bad guy well too often.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because as a GM, if you don't give the player somebody that's evil often enough, they start to distance themselves from what's going on. If they don't ever feel like they're on the right path, then they start to get morally gray, and that can be troublesome.
Yes, if your players lose their moral compass, you could be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Because we've seen that where you have the morally gray villain who comes out and he's like, well, I've done this and this, but I've also done all these good things, and the player just comes up like, nope, bullet to the head, bam,
right.
Don't care.
Yes.
You know, you're still bad. You know what? You're bad. Everybody bad dies. That's all there is to it.
Yeah. It's tough. You're right. It is. And also, also, look, there's a satisfaction in defeating villains, right? It's a story. It's escapism. Yes. Defeating villains is a fun thing to do. I think it's, I think if you want to keep your villain around longer, make him a gray villain, because players will have to slow down and really be like, okay, we thwarted them, and I think this is okay for now. And then later you could just be like, ratchet that up again. And so,
I like to think of it too as like when you give them that ambiguity, or that make them question whether or not you've got a full-on mustache twirler or you've got something else. Mm-hmm. When you give them that, there's a way more role-playing potential.
Yes.
And if you've got a good table, they will chew that, and you will get some good stuff.
It's always fun when your players decide to side with the villain for a while.
This guy's got a point. We should go help him do X. And then
I love if you can get the bad guy, good guys team up. There was I'm going to wind up talking about Deep Space Nine, but there's a episode of Deep Space Nine I watched recently where a rogue group of Jem'Hadar capture one of those portals that travels all through the universe from the Iconians, and another group of Jem'Hadar and the Defiant crew team up to stop them.
Yep.
And it's a
that was good stuff.
The best part of the episode is just the two groups trying to get along.
Yeah.
Right. And failing constantly until they get into battle.
And wondering every second of the way when the Jem'Hadar are just going to turn on the Federation and just waste them. It's like...
Exactly. And it goes right down to the last minute for that episode. Like, all of a sudden, everybody's weapons turn back on, and you're like, well, like, is this it? So,
jump right in. Go.
I dig. I will parlay that right into my media piece has been Deep Space Nine. I've been binging since the middle of season 3. I'm now starting season 5. And I've basically been watching 1 or 2 episodes a day. The thing that I've been getting out of it gaming wise is that I'm realizing that as I get ready to run my future Star Trek game, I have found so many tropes that are not uniquely Star Trek, but so many Star Trek tropes that I've now seen between Next Gen, DS9, and Voyager. So I've been keeping this like running list of like, okay, I need to have a holodeck accident adventure, a mirror universe adventure. There needs to be alien possesses member of crew adventure. I had a couple of other ones that I was running through.
Everyone gets drunk on space madness.
I think there's a flavor of that in each one, right? There's a Q episode, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you can't not have a Q episode. Each captain deals with Q differently. Cisco might be my favorite one.
Yep.
But as I've been watching it, like, I'm going through and going, oh, this episode is very much like this episode of Voyager. This episode is very much like Next Gen. And I'm really okay with that, because you kind of see how each show handles it differently based on the flavor of the show.
Yep.
The mirror universe in DS9 is, I know what the other one was. You have to have a time travel.
There's one more too. You have to have the full-on balls out comedy episode.
Yes. There's also like those surreal episodes, or there's also the dream episodes, right? There's one where Julian is attacked by this psychic assassin, and he's having this like all these weird dreams, but he's just stuck in his head. But yeah, there's the medical mystery episode.
Yeah.
Right, where the doctor has to solve some sort of space plague.
We'll call that the house episode.
Yeah, exactly. There's the house episode, right? There's a lot of these. And the thing is, there's nothing wrong with them. Like years ago, when I wanted to run Star Trek, I was going to run Decipher Trek. I was like, I'm not doing any of those episodes. I'm going to be totally original, blah, blah, blah. And then I got over my shit, right? And I was like, you know what? These tropes are fun and people will enjoy them. Like having a mirror universe episode will be fun. People will dig that.
After all, Phil, resistance is futile.
Right.
Exactly.
So I've really, and I have to say, while DS9 is my favorite Star Trek series, it is actually the one I've seen the least multiple times. Like I've seen Next Gen so many times.
Oh, yeah.
And I actually saw Voyager a bunch of times because it was on Spike years ago when my son was really little, and I used to watch it in the afternoons when I would watch him. And DS9 is the one that I just haven't watched enough. And so I'm having this like wonderful time where I suddenly remember at the last minute something about the show. Like I totally missed the clue on the episode where they introduce Worf. And then all of a sudden Cisco's like, we need to understand Klingons, you need a Klingon. And I'm like, wait. And I'm like an idiot. Like I've seen the whole series. I know Worf's coming on the series, but I'm like all excited. I'm like, oh, this is it. He's coming on the series. Like whatever, fine. Same thing just happened the other day when Worf and Jadzia finally get together. And so yeah, I think the important part, my gaming piece of this is that, and I do this a lot of times with media anyway, is look for those tropes and don't be shy about tropes. Like I used to be really full of my own bullshit on trying to be as original as fucking possible. Like I was fucking maddening about this. And I don't think any of my players ever noticed or cared. And it was like some weird thing that I had to prove to myself. Like, no, don't do any tropey, cliche kind of things. And now I'm like, fuck it. Everybody loves fucking cliches and tropes. Like, we're gonna do a fucking time travel episode. You're all gonna fucking love it, right? Like, I'll put my own spin on it, but like, we're totally doing a fucking time traveling episode just cause.
Yeah,
it's a grognardy thing. We've talked about this before. There's this elitist GMing thing. It's the idea that, because I homebrew and I do all original stuff, that makes me a superior GM to everybody. And
I was high on that. I was high on that bullshit for a while. Like, I'm actually really happy that over the years, I've just gotten over it, because sometimes my best moments in games that I have run have been tropey things. Like when we were running masks, Bob would frequently call out some of the tropey superhero stuff I was doing. And I'm like, yep, that's exactly what that is. Everybody lean in now, because that's what we're doing.
Yep.
And we had a great time doing it. So maybe that's my
why
last.
You're playing a superhero game or a Star Trek game. You want to play those tropes.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's what I finally learned, right? Like, not to be super original. I'll still put my original spin on those tropes because I like to, do my own thing, but like, don't hide from the things. Like, the reason people love some of those episodes in Star Trek are because they're so tropey.
Yeah, I need to get a hold of the latest Star Trek game and start looking through it, because for curiosity purposes.
Yeah. Talk to me. Oh man, just get ready. Like, I'm telling you that the next hole in my gaming schedule, I'm offering up a Star Trek game.
Yep.
That sounds good.
I am ready for your wisdom.
I am ready to. I've been looking at ships, like suggested ships that I can show people, like to pick from your, artwork from, like, because there's a whole fuck ton of artwork on DeviantArt and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, so much. Oh, good boy. Anyway.
Yeah.
One last thing to wrap up this section. A little bit of other stuff. What other stuff is kind of going on that's kind of gaming adjacent, gaming related, that's going on in your life that's different from what we're going to talk about right after that in the conversation corner?
Well, go for it.
Ouch. Yeah, so I will start. This is the gaming adjacent portion. I I have been noticing throughout the course of at least, especially the last few weeks, but definitely this situation that we're all in with the lockdown and the virus and all that stuff like that, people are under a lot of stress for varying reasons. And I am reminded on almost a daily basis how much this community has got each other's backs. Somebody will drop a message in the Slack room and they're like, oh man, I'm having a rough time or whatever. And people are following on with like, oh, hey, you know, what can we do to help? Or I've got your back, or hey, hugs, bro, whatever. Like, everybody's just like, we got you, you know, and that is a beautiful thing, that having a daily reminder of that also helps to keep me going sometimes when things are like, but it's awesome, and we love you, and don't stop being you, and I'm glad to be a part of this community.
I agree. Yeah. The Slack room for life is the place I constantly check into during the day while I'm sitting at my desk working, just like, hey, what's going on in the world, or who's got something funny, or, you know, did PK put up something else delicious, that PK's cooking.
Yes.
The answer is yes. I don't know if you saw shawarma the other day, but geez, man, go hang out with PK more. Yeah. How about you, Jer?
I think a lot of it, I have to go back to just what Bob said. The community's been amazing. I'm just enjoying seeing the way that people are adapting to the gaming situation right now, and seeing how they are, the resources that are coming out. And I love the creativity. Somebody told me that, crisis always spurs creativity, and it really does. And I'm finding it to be just a lot of fun to see the cool things that people are doing, the way that game companies are offering, hey, you're stuck at home, so here's a $40 game we're going to put up for free, or for $5 or $10 today to come play our game and do this sort of thing. Companies offering a bunch of things. I get a lot of the flat plastic minis from Arknight, and I did one of their Kickstarters. And one of the things they did is they took all of the artwork for their Kickstarters, which is I think 190 images, and just offered them up as virtual tabletop tokens.
Oh, nice. Awesome. Yes.
So all that sort of thing going out there for people, that it's not just the community. And the way that people are interacting to see, and I'm not going to try to put a huge line between the video gamers and the role-playing gamers. I'm going to say it's the competitive gamers versus the community gamers. Seeing some things in some of the video games I play where I see the people that play more cooperative games are being super inclusive of new people in the market. That's a lot of fun to see somebody new coming in. Hey, I've never done this before. We see us in Strikeforce. I've never done this before. Or my character's like 3rd level and you guys are all 75. Well, come on in. We'll take care of you. We'll walk you through things. And instead of, well, gee, you're not contributing anything. It's no, come with us. We're going to give you all sorts of cool stuff. Follow us and we'll show you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Which is mysteriously like Minecraft as well. Bill?
Mine's a little more personal, although I echo everything you guys are saying about community during this time. Like it's been excellent. The Free League was so helpful to me when I asked them just out of the blue if I could get the images for the initiative cards so that I could build the actual initiative card deck for Forbidden Lands. And they were like, yeah, totally. And they just sent me they sent me over the stuff and I was able to make the cards out of them, which was fantastic. But the thing that's been on my mind, I don't have actually any more time, right? Like I'm very fortunate. I'm still working full time. And work has not slowed down for me. If anything, being in higher ed and being part of the apparatus that provides online learning, I am by no means running slow right now. I'm running full speed. But despite that, I have this very, very strong yearning to run 2 older games that I just want to do online with people, especially because some people have mentioned them. Like I really, really, really want to run Underground. I love it. I love the game so much. I talk about it a lot. Other people have talked about it or are curious about it or love it. And I really want to run it. I have zero time to actually do this, but it has not left me, right? I'm still excited about it. I still want to run it. And the other one, which I do want to do as a treat to, in part to myself and in part with a group of players, because I believe it will be epic, is I want to run the original version of the Mountain Witch. I don't think we'll ever see the revised version of the Mountain Witch ever. I am fortunate enough to own the physical copy of the Mountain Witch, thanks to Jason Morningstar, of whom I bought it off of many years ago. I have never run it, but I know so many people who could play up the crushing drama of these Ronin making this assault, and will they or won't they betray each other at the end. Senda already chimed in. Senda would be one of the first people I would have considered for this. Like the high drama that could come out of it, plus my own ability. Like when I first bought it, I was not the GM I am today, and I was never comfortable running it because there's so much of it that needs to be ad-libbed, where now I'm like, oh, I can fucking run this thing.
Oh, yeah, you would kill it.
Right. But even better, the people that I game with now, like the people I game with could play this game to the hilt, right? So I very much want to come back and run this game. I just don't have any extra time. Like I don't know. I don't know what to do about that. I'm just going to keep pining for these games, and eventually I will find a way to run them. Like the Mountain Witch would be a probably 4 to 5 session mini campaign, right? Because it's designed to be one scenario, and you just play it for a whole bunch of hours, and you're done. And Underground, I could run a small adventure kind of thing for as well if I got into it. I kind of want to run the original, even though I made my own fate hack of it. I kind of want to run the original just to pay tribute to the original mechanics, which I don't think the original mechanics are terrible. They're just very traditionally 90s. It's a very traditional 90s game. Our fate version that Chris and I made for it years ago just makes the game more modern feeling, right? It's fate. You just, you have aspects and shit like that. Anyway, I'm just kind of pining for those games. They are Underground's a game I never got to run enough, and Mountain Witch's game I have never run, but have been absolutely fascinated with the game since I first heard about it, and it's something I just really want to do. And I know I could put together an all-star cast for the Mountain Witch. I mean, you guys send a Weregator. Like there's a bunch of people where there are probably too many people when I think about it, but it actually plays a decent number of people, which would be even more fun because you just, you have all these Ronin running around. So I don't know, maybe that'll come around at some point.
Oh yeah, can we get 47 people?
No, but thank you for not making a nod to my favorite samurai story of all time.
Yeah.
Not the Keanu Reeves one, to be clear. Just not. Anyway.
But that was not Keanu Reeves' fault, because he also didn't like that movie because of that.
Well, it's fair. Yeah. It's fair. There's lots of not like in that movie. Anyway.
Yep.
Anyway, wrapping up our first Salon episode. This is kind of the format we're going to do for a little while. Like I said, it's a much lighter format for me to put together. In fact, I actually have to put together very little, and we just kind of play off of each other. So I hope people have enjoyed it. I hope people don't mind that we're taking kind of a little break, just because it's really helpful for me. I was really close on the edge of burnout. For writing the workshop episodes and things like that. And this is kind of a nice diversion and still get to talk about cool gaming stuff along the way. It's just that this is like more organic and self-generated. So with that, Bob, is there anything else going on in the chat room?
We've got, let me make sure I didn't write anything in the thing over here. Mo Tusino, while we were talking about playing games online, noted and put a link for his list of over 250 free print and play games and scenarios that publishers have released for playing online during the course of the pandemic. So that is a great resource. Link is in the Slack room. We can also see if we can put that on the webpage in the show notes when the time comes.
Very nice.
In fact, I'm going to copy that right now. Make sure we have it. Oh, for crying out loud, I'm using the wrong keyboard because that's how I do things. Because I've got two different things going on here. Other than that, we're good for now. So,
all right, cool. Let's roll over to the conversation corner. Talk about what else is going on.
Conversation corner. Hey, you know what? We have a thing for that. Boom, 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 boom. Hey, welcome to the conversation corner.
Alrighty. So cool. We'll talk a little bit about things that are also going on in our lives. Bob, are you buying stuff during this?
Yeah, I mean, everybody at some point does a little retail therapy, right?
Absolutely.
The funny part is that I keep buying board games during a time when I have no one to go play them with because we're all supposed to stay home and practice social distancing. So I'm like,
Bob,
look, another one.
But Bob, you also know that as soon as this lifts, you have a captive audience of people who will play board games.
Exactly. We're going to have a game day as soon as everybody can get back together. We're having a game day.
Hell yeah.
I think Mo would steer you towards some solo games if you're looking to buy some board games that you could actually put to use while you're, in lockdown.
A couple of the games that I've bought have solo play variants. So
there you go.
I just need to sit down and actually do that. But I find myself when I'm not inspired, I pop open the Mahjong app on my computer or the Solitaire app on my computer, and I sit and I do that.
Perfectly fine, man. That's good stuff.
But yeah, that is one of the things that I've been doing is like, oh look, what do you call it? AEG. That's what it is. AEG sent me an email. I was like, oh yeah, we're having like 25% off all our dice games, and I'm like, ooh, that looks interesting. I'll buy that. So yeah, I gotta try and be more mindful of how I spend the money because money doesn't grow on trees. Although I'm theoretically going to be flush with a little extra capital, so maybe one or two extra.
Turn that magic money into some.
That's right.
The other thing that's been going on is I've been actually not really eating better, but kind of not eating better on purpose. But I'm not getting as much takeout as I used to. Like when I was at work, I would almost always get takeout for lunch. And then I would mix in some takeout dinners, the pizza more often than not on the weekend, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I have been eating a lot less takeout stuff, and this takeout that I have been getting has been slightly different. So I've been actually losing a little weight. I was flat from this week to last week. I didn't lose anything from last week, but I'm down close to 200 again. So I'm hoping that in the next week or two, I can finally crack the 200 plateau and get into the 190s again. Just because it's been a while.
That's really good.
At one point when I peaked over 210, I'm like, 212, 215 is not good.
I'm with you on eating better. I used to almost exclusively eat lunches out. Not that I always wanted to, but things like there either wouldn't be leftovers or or because of the kids' Taekwondo schedules, there wouldn't be, we'd get something out for dinner, which then automatically means there's nothing for lunch, which triggers me to go out for lunch, like a chain reaction. But like now, I'm constantly making lunches, out of leftovers or just cooking something fresh from the fridge. And I've only been getting takeout stuff like once a week. The last couple of weeks, I like kind of treated myself to a Five Guys burger, which I will say Five Guys takeout works perfectly fine. Like it doesn't lose anything when you get it. Like I got takeout from a couple of other places, and some places have been excellent. Some places have been a little less excellent. Five Guys was one of those ones that is just as good. Like you just even the 5-minute car ride home with it in the car and then putting it on the table, still delicious.
I did Five Guys a week ago. I had to make a delivery out in the Sweet Home area and hit your Five Guys up, and they did a great job. I paid for it later because Five Guys is not diet food.
No. It's you will feel it.
Yes, but it was so good.
It is good. I do occasionally. We haven't done it in a week or two, but pizza from my favorite pizza place, Elise's, like that has totally held up. Elise's was always good for takeout. Like there was never an issue switching over for over in pandemic land for that. But yeah, I'm with you, Bob. I definitely have not only eaten better, but I've even challenged myself to be like, all right, cool. What new recipe am I going to try this week? And I've made some delicious things in the last couple weeks. Like I've been very pleased with that. I guess I'll just roll through really quickly on some of my other stuff. Just simple stuff. I've been doing this thing. I realized, like you were talking about retail therapy. I have been buying myself stuff over like the last 9 weeks. Nothing big, but I've been like buying stuff, and like it's been okay that it hasn't been getting here on time because I just have this like every like week or so, like something new arrives, and I'm like, oh, I got a present from myself, right? And I'm just like eternally pleased. Like last week I bought myself a new earbud. So, I've always had the one that's around my neck kind of thing. I bought this one that just like goes behind my one ear, and it's fantastic, right? So like no more thing around my neck, no more getting it caught in my sweatshirt.
Wait, so that's a solo bud?
It's a solo earbud thing, and it's like 10 hours of listening time. It was like $30, and it just, even with my glasses,
I didn't know they did that.
Oh, sure. I'll send you a link.
I thought that was a typo in the show notes. I fixed them. I changed it to buds.
Yeah, no. It's a single bud, and it's Bluetoothed in, and I've got it paired to every one of my devices. So like when I'm cooking in the kitchen, I can listen to DS9 without everyone else listening. And if I take it out in the car, I've got it paired to my Samsung and all that. So anyway, so I've been buying myself like little gifts along the way. So I think you were there Saturday or Sunday night when I bought myself something from Jet Pens. Yep. That's coming like in 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, good. In 2 weeks, like I don't need this stuff right away. In 2 weeks, I'll be like very pleased to get another little present from myself.
Yeah.
I actually got enough energy and spoons together to do some design work. And I did I did the first draft of my Trophy Gold submission for the old Caldor Mega Dungeon that's getting put together. So I did my first draft of my scene. I think it came out pretty okay. I'm going to revise it, and then I'm going to put it up early to the community and see if I can, because there's a whole group of writers, and see if anyone else has any feedback about it. But I'm digging it. I like it. It's weird. I like weird, like it's an old, it's a mega dungeon crawl thing, and I tried to come up with something suitably weird for it, very Gygaxian. I think I got it there. And on top of that, the Gauntlet has released, and I haven't downloaded them yet, but they have podcasts for how to run Trophy Gold specifically, like
cool.
Putting out a set of podcasts like how to run Trophy Gold, and I'm like, fuck yes, because from the time I played it with Jerry and Chris, I'm like, I think I'm going to like this game a whole lot. I'm just not sure if I'm playing it properly. So now I can remedy that because I can actually listen to Jason Cordova. I think it's Jason who's narrating it. It could be the actual designer of the game. I'm not sure which one it is, but I could actually hear how to run it properly. That's huge. So I'm gonna try to get a listen to those in the next week or so. And then the other thing that I've been really excited about is that all the new X-Men titles have hit Marvel Unlimited. So, Marvel Unlimited lags the regular release schedule. But Excalibur 1 and I think X-Force 1 and New Mutants 1, all of those started coming out. And I'm very excited, starting to read those. I really enjoyed the Hickman Powers of X series and all of that. So I'm kind of digging. I'm kind of digging where the Marvel has taken the X-Men. For a long time, while they didn't have the license, because of the MCU, the X-Men took a beating in the comic books, right? They became the punching bag for the Avengers and everyone else. And now there's this kind of cool comeback where they've got their own nation. They're definitely in a much better position. There's some really interesting things about the new X-Men kind of world. There's also a little polycule. The writers won't say it, but there's a little Wolverine, Jean Grey, Cyclops polycule that has been hinted at now multiple times. Right down to when you look at the schematics for, I forget if it's the House Summers or whatever it is, but it's the section of the Blue Moon where Scott and all of them live. That Jean's bedroom is flanked on either side by Cyclops and Wolverine, and both have doors to Jean's bedroom. There's a little something going. There's a little something going on there, and I'm all supporting it. I don't know if Marvel will be courageous enough to just come right out with it, or maybe they have, and I just haven't caught up on the comic books. But whatever, that can happen. Mm-hmm. I'm good on that. So, so I've been doing that as well. It's just been really good to actually do a little design work. I've been running on such low power that actually working on Trophy Gold is what got me to do a little work on keyboards and rollerblades, which was fun. Keyboards and rollerblades was just plain fun to do. And I'll just get that wrapped up as well. But for me, wrapping up, Jerry, what about you? What you doing?
Mostly, I'd like to surf eBay and that and grab old Lego sets once in a while. I still love the old design aesthetic that they had from the 70s and 80s vehicles and trucks and cars. So every once in a while, I'll find somebody who's got a bunch on sale and I'll grab them and just building them. Plus, the new stuff has been a lot of fun. It just gives me something to do when I need to calm down. And something that's creative. I mean, it's basically physical Minecraft, or Minecraft is live action Legos, take your pick. And I've also been getting some old games. I'm a big fan of games that are the origin of role-playing. Because when I got to the 80s, I had some GMs who ran a lot of the old stuff. And there were some things that as a child, I would sit and stare at it in the game store window and couldn't afford. And now I can, though sometimes I'm paying way too much for it. But I'm collecting some of the things, especially some of the old Heritage games. Heritage was a miniatures company in the 70s, and they put out a couple of role-playing. They put out the first Star Trek role-playing game. They put out a game called Swordbearer, which had some, much like how Marvel Face Rip has a lot of what we now consider to be modern concepts for its design. They just weren't implemented properly. Swordbearer had a lot of that. But Heritage also did these games that were called Paint and Plays. It was a boxed set that had anywhere from 8 to 20 miniatures in it and had either a board game or, in 4 cases, had a group of linked scenarios. So there's the Cleric's Quests, and you're basically playing a bunch of clerics trying to do 5 or 6 adventures, and you level up after each one. There's the Woman Warrior, the Fighter's Fury, and the Wizard's Bane. And I've got some of those already, and I've been slowly collecting the pieces for the ones I don't have. They're the kind of things you could sit down and probably play the whole campaign out in one big session. They're really just tabletop hack and slash, but there's some bits and pieces of there that you can see how this led to more expansions of role-playing games. That's just something I find. I love to look back at those old games. It's why I still have a fondness for the Fantasy Trip, despite what they've done with it recently. And while I like games like Villains Vigilantes, even though the mechanics, the math, and that's ridiculous, and it's fun to look at. And that I don't read enough anymore because I read all day at work, and I get home and I want to talk to my friends. I don't read books as much. I'm trying to find something that'll catch my attention and drag me in. So I don't go on long car trips as much, so I'm not listening to as many podcasts. But that should be changing once they lift once the state begins to open up. I'll be traveling to visit my reps again, and I'll get a chance. I'm looking forward to doing more of that. I don't mind windshield time as long as I've got something fun to listen to. And to be honest, that's kind of how I made it, how I avoided Concrud coming back from Origins a couple times when I'd come and hang out with everybody, and then I'm in a car ride for the next 6.5 hours all by myself. I would just put in, some stuff from MMP or one of the groups that I knew, and listen to people talk in the background. And whatever it takes to get yourself through. So that's what I'm doing now, and we'll see what happens next.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Hey, look at us. I think we're supposed to be,
but pretty close. Clock.
Yep.
So should we do this? Should we do some patron shout outs and then roll into the after
shout outs? We have wrapped around to the royal court again.
Yep.
So here we go. We have Eileen Barnes, the Duchess of Pandas and Talking Games, Andrew Dacey, the Warden of Whiskies, Andy Olson, the Duke of Dice, Brian Kurtz, the Royal Doctor of Physic, Craig, the Lord of One Name, Eric Bontz, the Duke of Gators and the Lord of Beefness, our very own GM Gerrymander, the Lord of the After Show, Jared Rasher, the Scribe of MMP, Jesse Edmond, the Royal Doctor, John C. LeMay, the Guard at the End of the World, John Carney, the Court Necromancer, Kevin Lovecraft, the Royal Beard, Mike Dinos, the Inquisitor of Mark, and his fine animal companion Pretzel, P.K. Sullivan, the Queen's Royal Rocketeer, Richard Wyatt, Captain of the Royal Airship Fleet, Schmitty, the Keeper of the Labyrinth,
Schmitty,
yay! Tiberius Starcrash Smith, the Baron of Britannia, and Todd Crapper, the Prophet of Probability. Thank you for being our patrons, and thank you everyone for listening tonight.
If you are free on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. the Queen's Time, come join us live on Twitch, where you can chat with the other listeners in the awesome chat room for life and ask us the occasional question.
And if you can't make it to the live show, check out the podcast each week, wherever you get your podcasts, and take a listen to some of their shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, such as Down with D&D, Bonestone Obsidian, the FM Gamers, Pandas Talking Games, the Gnomecast, Jangu Hustle, She's a Super Geek, and Bonus Experience. You can and should also check out our sibling podcasts, the Tabletop Bellhop, Amo, the Knights of the Night, and the always amazing Gaming in BS.
After you have poured yourself a nice drink in your high glass, put an extra log on the fire, and settled into your high-back leather chair, leave us some feedback. You can reach us directly via email, mmp@misdirectedmark.com, or check us out on Twitter. The show in the network, as always, is at Misdirected Mark. This guy is Robert M. Everson. That guy is GM Gerrymander. And as always, I'm DNA Phil.
If you like what we do here and on the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, you can support our Patreon campaigns. MMP, Down with D&D and Pandas Talking Games are at patreon.com/MMP. She's a Super Geek is at patreon.com/SassGeek. Zhanghu Hustle is at patreon.com/Zhanghu Hustle. And Bonus Experience is at patreon.com/Bonus Experience. Patrons of MMP, Down with D&D, and Pandas Talking Games get access to the after show, pre-production show notes, musical parodies, and the Pandas Talking Games bonus outtakes, and other special releases on... Misdirected Mark word scramble. Other special releases.
This has been a Misdirected Mark production, the media arm of Encoded Designs. Mic drop.
We out.